The day started like any other Tuesday. School was a blur of boring lessons. I was just trying to get through it. After the final bell, I walked to Willow Creek Park. It was my favorite spot, a place to escape everything. The trees were old and tall, like gentle giants watching over the town. I usually sat by the big oak tree near the pond. I would listen to music and forget about homework. But today, something felt different. The air was still. The usual sounds of the park seemed quiet. It was just me and the rustling leaves. I was kicking at a loose patch of dirt near the oak tree's roots. It was something I did when I was thinking. My foot hit something hard. It wasn't a rock. It made a strange, hollow sound. I knelt down, curious. I dug at the soil with my hands. The dirt was cool and damp. Slowly, an object started to appear. It was black and rectangular. It looked like an old phone. It was covered in mud and scratches. I wondered who would bury a phone here. It seemed so strange. A little mysterious. I pulled it from the ground and wiped the dirt off with my sleeve. The screen was cracked. The case was faded. It looked like it had been there for years. I thought it was just forgotten trash. But I felt a weird pull toward it, like it was waiting for me. I tried to turn it on. I pressed the power button, not expecting anything. To my complete surprise, the screen flickered to life. The battery was almost full. How was that even possible? It was like magic. A little shiver went down my spine. I tucked the phone into my backpack, my heart beating a little faster. It felt like I had found a secret, something no one else knew about. On the walk home, my mind was racing with questions. Who did this phone belong to? Why was it buried in the park? And how did it still have power after all this time? It felt like the beginning of a movie, my own little mystery. I couldn't wait to get home and see what was on it. I had no idea that this small, forgotten phone was about to change everything. Later that night, I was in my room. I had finished my homework. The house was quiet. I took the old phone out of my backpack. I placed it on my desk. It just sat there, dark and silent. I had looked through it earlier. There were no contacts, no photos, no old messages. The phone was completely empty. It was like it was brand new, but also ancient. The feeling of mystery was stronger than ever. I almost forgot about it as I started watching a show on my laptop. The day's strangeness was fading away. Suddenly, the old phone buzzed. The sound was loud in the quiet room. It made me jump. The screen lit up with a notification, a new message. That was impossible. The phone had no SIM card. It wasn't connected to the Wi-Fi. How could it get a message? My heart started pounding again. I slowly reached for the phone. My hand was shaking a little. I felt a mix of fear and excitement. Who could possibly be texting a dead phone? It didn't make any sense at all. I opened the message. The sender was listed as unknown. The message itself was short and confusing. It just said, "Can anyone hear me? Is it working?" I stared at the words. They seemed so simple but so strange. It felt like a message in a bottle sent out into a vast ocean. I didn't know how to reply. I didn't even know if I could. I typed out a quick, "Who is this?" and hit send. The message failed. Of course it did. The phone had no connection. It was just a one-way street. I put the phone down, my mind spinning. Was it a prank? A virus? A weird glitch? The date on the message caught my eye. It was stamped with today's date, but the year was wrong. It said December 2nd, 2030, 5 years in the future. I read it again and again, 2030. My blood ran cold. This couldn't be real. Messages from the future. That only happened in science fiction stories. But there it was, right in front of me. A message from someone, 5 years from now, and they sounded desperate. The next night, it happened again. Exactly at 10 p.m. The phone buzzed, vibrating against my desk. Another message from unknown. This time, the words were filled with more panic. "They're getting closer. I don't have much time. I have to warn someone." My breath caught in my throat. Who was they? What was happening in the future? The message felt so real, so urgent. It was like I was listening to a desperate whisper from a ghost from a time that hadn't happened yet. This was more than just a glitch. Every night a new message arrived. Each one painted a darker picture. "The park isn't safe anymore. Remember the old oak tree. Something terrible is going to happen here." The sender seemed terrified. They wrote about hiding, about being hunted. The messages were short, broken fragments of fear. It felt like I was reading someone's final thoughts. The person writing them was clearly in trouble, and for some reason, their messages were coming to me. To this old, buried phone. I felt a heavy weight on my shoulders. The fear in the messages was contagious. I started feeling scared too. I would lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about the words. Don't let them forget what happened. It all starts at the festival. What festival? What happened? The questions swirled in my head, keeping me awake. I started looking over my shoulder when I walked home. The familiar streets of my town suddenly felt different. They felt like they were hiding a dark secret, a secret that only I knew about, a secret from the future. I knew I couldn't ignore this. This wasn't a game. Someone's life could be in danger. Even if it was 5 years in the future, the person on the other end was real. Their fear was real. I had to do something. I had to figure out what they were talking about. It felt like a huge responsibility. A puzzle was given to me, and I was the only one who could solve it. The messages were a cry for help, and I was the only one who could hear it. I had to become a detective. My investigation started online. I spent hours in my room, with the glow of my laptop lighting up my face. I searched for everything I could think of: Willow Creek Park future events, town festival tragedy, accidents at the old oak tree. The search results were always the same. Nothing. Just articles about town picnics and local news. There was no mention of any disaster, no hint of a terrible event. It was like the future was a blank page, or maybe the event was so secret that no one knew about it yet. The messages were my only guide. They were cryptic, but they were all I had. I wrote each one down in a notebook. I read them over and over, looking for hidden meanings. The clock tower will watch. Sparks will fly. Don't trust the lights. Were these metaphors? Or were they literal clues? I felt like I was trying to learn a new language, a language of warnings. I started to pay more attention to the world around me. I looked at the clock tower differently. I thought about the annual Founders Day festival. I decided to go back to the park, back to where it all began. I stood under the giant oak tree, the old phone in my hand. I looked around, trying to see the park through the eyes of the sender. What would make this peaceful place unsafe? I ran my hand over the bark of the tree. The message said to remember the old oak tree. Why was this tree so important? I looked up at its branches, then down at the roots, where I found the phone. It felt like the tree knew the secret. It was a silent witness. My friends started to notice I was acting strange. I was quiet and distracted. "What's wrong, Alex?" my friend Maya asked at lunch. "You seem like you're a million miles away," I wanted to tell her. I wanted to show her the phone and the messages. But how could I? She would think I was crazy. Messages from the future? Seriously? I could already hear her laughing. So I kept it to myself. It was a lonely investigation. Just me, a notebook full of riddles, and a phone that held a terrifying secret. So, a new message came in. It was, longer this time, and way more specific. It said, Founders Day, the final act, the fireworks show by the pond, the wiring is faulty, no one listens, it's a trap. My blood, honestly, turned to ice. Founders Day was the biggest event in our town. The whole town gathered in Willow Creek Park. There was music, food, and this huge fireworks display over the pond. And, well, it was just 2 weeks away. The message gave me a date, a place, and even a cause. Faulty wiring. A trap. This wasn't just some vague warning anymore. It was like a blueprint for a disaster. I started connecting the dots. Sparks will fly obviously meant the fireworks. Or maybe it was about the faulty wires. The clock tower will watch made sense because the park's clock tower had a perfect view of the pond. Don't trust the lights probably referred to the festival lights and the fireworks setup. The puzzle pieces were, clicking into place. But they were forming a really horrible picture. A celebration turning into a tragedy. The messages weren't just a mystery anymore. They were a countdown to a catastrophe, and the clock was ticking. The sender's identity was still a mystery, but one message gave me this chilling clue. I wish I had listened to myself. I wish I had checked the wires like I said I would. The sender was talking to themselves, or maybe to a past version of themselves. And then suddenly, it hit me. The person sending the messages was me. It was a future version of me. A me from 2030, who had somehow survived this disaster and was trying to warn my past self. That's why the phone was buried. by my favorite tree. I had buried it for myself to find. The thought was, honestly, terrifying, but it made a strange kind of sense. The future me was living with a terrible regret. A regret so powerful that they found a way to break the laws of time just to send a warning. I looked at myself in the mirror. Was I really capable of letting a tragedy happen? The future me said I didn't listen. I didn't check the wires. I had to be different. I had to listen. I had to act. The responsibility felt even heavier now. I wasn't just saving strangers. I was trying to save my own future from a lifetime of guilt. With the new knowledge that I was the sender, my investigation became, a lot more personal. I had to understand the park and the festival setup, so I started spending every afternoon in Willow Creek Park. I wasn't just hanging out anymore, I was observing. I watched the festival organizers as they started setting up. Trucks arrived with equipment, and workers began stringing lights between the trees and building the stage near the pond. Everything looked, normal. Happy families walked by, all excited for the upcoming celebration. They had no idea about the danger lurking beneath the surface. I paid close attention to the area around the pond. This was where the fireworks would be launched. It was the center of the future disaster. I saw a team of technicians working there. They were running thick black cables from a generator to a control panel near the water's edge. This had to be it. The faulty wiring. I tried to get a closer look, but a worker told me to stay back. Restricted area, kid. This is high voltage stuff. His words sent a shiver down my spine. High voltage. Sparks will fly. The oak tree was my base of operations. I would sit under its branches and watch. The message said to remember the old oak tree. Looking at it now, I realized it had a clear view of the entire pond area. If something went wrong with the fireworks, this tree would be right in the line of sight. Maybe that's why the future me chose this spot. It was a place of memory. A place to watch. It was both my past and my future, all rooted in this one spot. The tree felt less like a silent witness, and more like an old friend guarding a secret with me. The feeling of being alone was overwhelming. I was a teenager trying to stop a disaster that no one else believed was real. I thought about going to the police or the festival organizers. But what would I say? Hi. My future self sent me text messages on a magic phone I dug up, and you need to stop the fireworks. They would think I was a prankster, or worse, they would dismiss me. The future me said, no one listens. I realized they had probably tried the normal way. I had to find a different path. I had to find proof. Founders Day was tomorrow. The park was buzzing with final preparations. The air smelled like fresh-cut grass and popcorn, but to me, it smelled like danger. The messages from the future had stopped. The last one was simple and chilling. Tonight is the night. Do something, please. The phone had gone silent after that. Its job was done. Now it was up to me. Panic started to set in. Time was running out. I had to find a way to make them listen. I couldn't let my town walk into a trap. My plan was risky. I had to get proof. I decided to sneak into the park late at night after all the workers had gone home. The park was officially closed, surrounded by temporary fencing, but I knew a spot where the fence was loose. I slipped through in the darkness. My heart was pounding in my chest. Every shadow looked like a monster. The colorful festival lights were off, and the park was bathed in an eerie silence. It felt like a ghost town. The clock tower loomed over me, its face dark. I made my way to the pond. The fireworks control area was covered with a tarp. I pulled it back, my hands trembling. I used the flashlight on my own phone to look at the wiring. I didn't know much about electronics, but I knew what looked wrong. There were exposed wires near a puddle of water. A junction box was left open, and the connections inside looked frayed and hastily put together. It looked like an accident waiting to happen. This was the proof. This was the trap. Sparks will fly echoed in my head. I took several photos with my phone, clear, close-up shots of the exposed wires and the open junction box. This was more than just a crazy story now. This was evidence. As I was about to leave, I heard a noise, the sound of footsteps. I quickly ducked behind a large speaker. Two of the festival technicians walked by. I heard one of them say, "Did you double-check that wiring by the pond?" The other one laughed. "It's fine. We're in a rush. It'll hold for one night." They didn't care. The future me was right, no one was listening. The next day, the day of the festival, I woke up with a heavy feeling in my stomach. The sun was shining, but it felt like a storm was coming. I had the photos on my phone, I had the truth, but I was still just a kid. Who would listen to me? I decided to go straight to the top. I found the festival organizer, a busy-looking woman with a clipboard named Ms. Evans. I ran up to her, my phone in my hand. Ms. Evans, you have to stop the fireworks. The wiring is dangerous, I said, my voice shaking. She barely looked at me. Kid, we have professionals handling it. Everything is perfectly safe. Now please, I'm very busy. She started to walk away. No, please, look, I said, shoving my phone in front of her. I took these photos last night. She stopped and glanced at the pictures. Her expression changed. The smile faded. She looked from my phone to the crew by the pond, and then back to my phone. She saw the open junction box. She saw the frayed wires near the water. The proof was undeniable. Ms. Evans grabbed her radio. Mark, this is Sarah. Shut down all power to the pond grid immediately. We have a major safety issue. Repeat, shut it all down, now. Her voice was firm and urgent. She looked at me, her eyes wide. Show me where you took these. We rushed over to the control area. The technicians, the same ones from last night, looked annoyed. But when Ms. Evans showed them the photos and pointed to the real thing, their faces went pale. They knew they had been caught. They knew how close they had come to causing a disaster. The fireworks show was canceled. An announcement was made about technical difficulties. People were disappointed, but they were safe. I stood by the old oak tree and watched as the technicians worked frantically to fix their mistake. They weren't in a rush anymore. They were being careful. I felt a huge wave of relief wash over me. It was over. I did it. I had listened. I had changed the future. The park was filled with the sounds of music and happy chatter, not screams and sirens. The tragedy was just a ghost now. An echo that never happened. In the days that followed, the town was buzzing with rumors about the canceled fireworks. The official story was a last-minute safety inspection found a critical fault. No one knew about my role in it. No one knew about the phone or the messages from the future. It was my secret. Ms. Evans just thanked me for being observant and left it at that. I was okay with that. I didn't need a reward. Knowing that everyone was safe was enough. The park went back to being my peaceful escape. But it felt different now. It felt like a place I'd protected. I thought a lot about the old phone. I went back to my room and picked it up. It was just a piece of plastic and glass again. It was dark and silent. The messages from the future were gone. I tried to turn it on, but the battery was dead. Completely and totally dead. It was like its purpose was fulfilled and it could finally rest. It had delivered its warning. It had helped me save the future. Its magic was gone. I knew what I had to do with it. It had completed its journey. I took the phone back to Willow Creek Park one last time. I went to the old oak tree, the silent keeper of my secret. I dug a small hole in the same spot where I'd found it. I placed the phone inside like I was putting a tired hero to rest. As I covered it with dirt, I wondered about the future me, the one who lived with so much regret. I hoped that by changing the past, I had given them peace. I hoped their future was a little brighter now. Maybe their messages had faded away for them too. As I walked away from the tree, I felt different. I wasn't just a normal teenager anymore. I had learned that one person, even a kid, can make a huge difference. You just have to be brave enough to listen and bold enough to act. The future isn't set in stone. It's something we build every day with the choices we make. I didn't know what my future held, but I knew I would face it with my eyes wide open, and I would never, ever ignore a cry for help, not even one from the future. As the echoes of the mysterious messages fade, Alex looks toward a future forever changed by the secrets he uncovered. Sometimes, the greatest adventures are the ones that teach us who we truly are. Thank you for joining this journey. Until next time, stay curious.